making in sports science. So any idea anyone is having how we're going to do that? Anyone is having any sort of idea? No idea as such. Anyone wants to convey anything on that?
Decisions in what aspect? Like very specific to a particular. Like if you can just give an example, then maybe.
So, for example, decision could be of any form, okay, like a return to sports or training programs or be it anything. Fine. So, suppose you're given a task and you want to have a certain sort of decision to be done at that instance. So, how we can do all those things? So, that I was asking. Anyways, let's see how the things are. So today we are going to discuss about the things like hypothesis, okay, and need analysis and performance dimension, then KPIs, and then decision making and outcome. Fine. So I hope everyone is aware about the hypothesis. It's like making certain sort of assumptions we are talking about, and depending upon those things, we are going to have a certain sort of null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Fine, and then we will have a certain sort of data to be taken care of and like that. Fine, so I will not talk about what is hypothesis and how we are going to formulate all those things as of now. So let's see about how the things are in whenever we are talking about KPIs. Fine. So KPIs basically means key performance indicator we are talking about. So it is a particular word that is taken from the business point of view. Suppose if you are doing any sort of business right now, we need to have a certain sort of outcome measures we are talking. Like, for example, in the finance modeling, we need to understand customer value acquisition or long-term value of any product, anything. Okay, in the marketing, certain things are there. So different domain is going to have a certain sort of different KPIs. Fine. So it is a business context. Okay, that we are going to use in the form of or analogous to sports science. So whenever we are trying to do all those things, we need to understand and identify what it takes to succeed. Fine. So basically, we are trying to look upon the things like result, score, distance, and then apart from that, top performers and all those things over there. Then we need to define a certain sort of model, performance model. So what is model over here? So model is a generic term that is particularly used in the data science. Fine. So it's basically if we go to certain simple things, it's like a process we are talking about. And then apart from that, in a mathematical terms, we are going to talk about the functions, like any sort of linear equation. Y is equal to mx plus c. Fine. So that is in a sophisticated world, we can say it is like a model. Fine. So whenever we are doing all those things, we need to understand physiological demands, technical, tactical, nutritional, psychological, equipment, competition, and this all models can be add on. Okay, for a time being, I have written over here or taken from somewhere like this, but in fact, we can add a different demands also. Then here the next question will come, depending upon this performance model, what do I need to measure from this all performance determinants? Fine. So physiological things, what we need to measure, technical, tactical, nutritional, psychological, equipment, competitions. So there has to be a certain way in which we can measure. Fine. So there was the one line I was reading across, and it is like that if you are trying to say something, we need to understand that we need to measure it. Fine. So without measuring any sort of values, any things, the things will be much more like we won't be able to do any sort of justification that why we are doing. Fine. So each and every things what we are thinking to do training upon or do any sort of things, we need to understand that how the things are on that space, and we need to measure all those things. Fine. Now, next things will come upon like we need to assess the athlete, strength and weaknesses. We need to work upon strength to maintain that particular point, and we need to work upon weakness to improve upon it. Fine, that makes sense. Then, apart from that, we need to have a certain sort of strategies, like how we can plan it and deploy those programs, so that we can have a certain sort of progressions and we can able to look upon KPIs. Fine. So this is how the things are whenever we are trying to work upon any sort of key performance indicator. Fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. Thanks.
Fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. So over here you can see right now there are certain sort of physiological demands and health component also over here. And again we can differentiate this all things into different component also into much more deeper thought process and all those things depending upon the needs and all. And this is one of the example of 800-meter run, and this is one of the framework, and in a similar context we can able to replicate or review or we can make it and all those things like that. So let's see how the things are in this. So if we say performance determinants, you can able to see like a physiological demands over here. In that we can so aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, sprinting ability, buffing capacity, anaerobic speed, muscle tendon tissue elasticity, and like that the things are there. So this all demands is specific to 800-meter run over here. Fine. So aerobic capacity is what? I guess we are aware of what we know what is aerobic capacity. Then apart from that, what is anaerobic capacity also we know, like which energy system is working over there. Fine. Sprinting ability is one of the assessment we can do. Buffering capacity is how the exchange of molecules are in the molecular level, calorie level. Anaerobic speed reserve also is there. Okay. Then muscle tendon tissue elasticity. Then training interventions are there like long jumps, tempo runs, high intensity interval training, altitude training. In a similar context, we can able to see like a VO2 max, running economy, lactate, velocity at a particular VO2 max. So this is how the KPIs are we can able to visualize depending upon the performance determinants, depending upon the demands and training intervention. So we can able to say that physiological demands and training intervention is specific in nature to particular sports need, isn't it? So in a similar context we can able to determine other sorts of KPIs depending upon other sports also. Fine. So in a similar context we can able to do for technical demands, tactical demands. Again, this all things will be confined to coaches only, technical and tactical. And then but we also need to understand how the things are. Suppose if you're in any sports, we need to understand those sports in a much more better aspect to all the meticulous details over there. Fine. And then apart from that, we need to understand nutritional demands, psychological demands, health related component, equipment, and any rules and regulations also. Fine. And then if we say health related component, for example, we need to we need to look upon upper respiratory tract, lower limb injury, lower back injury, anthropometry. So this all things is going to let us in fact make us aware about that particular sports in a much more better manner. For example, if you're talking about any sort of injuries also, so 800-meter run, we know it is a sprinter. The hamstring strength should be much more better required. Iliopsoas firing should be better over there. There has to be a particular hip flexion also. That's why iliopsoas we need to work upon, and gluteus maximus and hamstring. So we need to look upon the strength component of those muscles. Fine. So and also we are aware about the common injuries that is going to occur, like a shin splint over there. So we need to work upon calf muscle and tibialis anterior muscle strength also. So this is how we can determine in small details how the things will be. So it's all about a vicious cycle. We need to analyze the thing and skill. We need to diagnose. We need to identify the improvement areas, risk areas. In a similar area, we need to discuss with our peers over there. And it's a vicious process. We need to keep doing all those things to and fro. Now, so decision making. Now, let's say what is decision making. Fine. So decision making is something like this concentric circle you can oversee over here. Fine. And there's something that what we know and we are confident about it, that this is fine, this is absolutely fine from my point of view. Then discussion, what we think we know. So there are certain areas in which we think we know something about that and we can discuss. Now there will be certain scenarios in which what we know we don't know. Like we need to questions over there. And there are so much of uncertainty when we are talking about unknown areas. Fine. So in this role is globally to all the domain. It is not only confined to sports or physical therapy. It can be applicable to any domain. Fine. So we need to understand we are lying in which circle over here, and we need to be having a certain sort of uh, thought process that how much we know in that particular thing. Suppose, for example, if I'm able to say any particular word, X, Y, Z, and how much we are knowing about those word. Fine. So this is about that. So let's say it's a categories over there, and something we know, like a supportive knowledge based on objective evidence. Category two is something upon the intuitions and experience. Then again, there's certain things on acknowledged unknowns areas, and sometimes we defer to acknowledge anything that we don't know, and we try to think that we know certain things and we try to work upon those things, but it is much more better to look upon the literature, and then we are in a better area like yellow or violet. Then again, so again, if we can relate it to sports science, so sports science as a source of objective truth, expanding objective knowledge is a category one. We are talking about decisions and all. Any sort of logics, direct experience, when objective truth is unavailable, then it is in a category two area, that what we think that we know. Then there are certain questions. Then it is the work of IDT, interdisciplinary teams. And then there are certain things that we think we don't know. We need to work upon all those things. This whole process is going to work with the influence of technology as well as data and as well as teamwork. So let's see how the decision things are there. I have tried to uh, just see this to one flow chart. So first of all, whenever anyone is coming to you, we need to understand their type of sports over here and what is the demand of that particular sports. Like it is a neuromuscular control is required much more. Okay, and with the cognitive function as a main determinants over there, or with some metabolic thing or a much more aerobic capacity we are trying to work upon. Fine. So again, it is a team sports or individual sports. Fine. Depending upon all these factors, our KPIs is going to get changed and decision making is going to get altered. How many times we are talking about any sort of things to be look upon, like assessment, screening, or we can say a training also, or rehabilitation, or anything, counseling. Once a week, daily 2 to 3 4 weeks, once a week, all the things are there. Are we looking for HRV, or HRV is heart rate variability, we are looking for that, or are we looking for some maximal heart rate or heart rate reserve, or VO2 max, anything like that. So this is how we can look upon the things. So this is a basic example, and we can make it much more simpler also and much more complicated also, depending upon the team needs and all those things. So see, this is one of the much more complex one. Okay, so this is one of the things in which we are trying to look upon the decision tree for selecting a physiological targets of high intensity interval training. That we should proceed selection of associated HIIT format or not. Fine. So looking upon all these things, we need to understand the sports demand, athlete profile, what is your long-term adaptation, what is your daily plan, microcycle, mesocycle, or macrocycle, all those things. So we will have this sorts of questions in our head as of now. Then depending upon the need of all those things, we need to look upon this anaerobic metabolic, is it diet or not? Fine. If no, then we are going for neuro strain or not. Then again, so it's like a yes no binary questions are there, And all this question is going to come to type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, type 5, type 6 categories. That is metabolic oxygen system, metabolic plus neuromuscular, metabolic plus anaerobic, metabolic plus anaerobic plus neuromuscular, then metabolic plus neuromuscular. That is also going to work upon different categories in that, and neuromuscular only. So if you say metabolic, we are working upon HIIT. If you are looking upon metabolics for neuromuscular, you are working upon HIIT and game base, then HIT short, long, then game based. So like this, we can able to look upon the data and we can visualize and we can train. So this is one of the complex aspect of one of the training decision tree for selecting any sort of physiological needs and targets and all those things. In a similar context, we can do it for different components. Fine. So now we can have a discussion right now, then about all these things. Anyone is having any queries? So I will go back to this slide, and this is a better components over here. Fine. So we can have a discussion right now. Anyone is having any queries or anything to be discussed? No one is having any queries, anything?
So I think if no one is asking, I wanted to go ahead. Uh,
Yeah, please.
shall I? Yeah. Okay. Now consider a situation like where we have to build a strategy, like what KPIs to uh like define. Like we'll start from like what do we need to define. In that scenario, how would you suggest that we should go about the process? Because there are different verticals, and obviously different verticals have uh, like so much of things to cater to. But if you would suggest at a very high level, like not at very granular level, uh, like you told right now, at high level, what would you suggest? What the strategy should be, just to see the results at very high level, but not at very granular, because going at that granular level at the first instance would be hard, because we have to collect that sort of data and then again work on that data to be correlated. But if we just want to build a strategy which is a very high level strategy, like a basic strategy which caters to suppose 4 or 5 things which affects an athlete performance, like suppose his wellness data, suppose his medical data, suppose his strength training, as you said. So what would you suggest in that scenario, how the strategy should be, and how should we go about defining the KPIs in first place?
Okay, so first of all, keeping that in mind, we need to have one sort of initial group discussion. Fine, with all the support staff as well as coach. Fine. Then we need to look upon the particular athlete over there, and we need to understand what are the weakness and strength. Fine. From a just, I guess, superficial point of view, then again, that point of view will give us, or in fact, that is going to guide us to have a much more deeper understanding of how we can define a KPIs over there. That is one area from the athlete point of view. Then apart from that, keeping the things like a sports, fine, any be it any sports, like for example over here sprinter, or you can suggest me any other sorts of
Yeah,
sports also.
sprinter would be great.
Okay, so we are aware that sprinters require certain sort of qualities, fine, like a certain sort of determinants are required, like physiological things, like for example 50-meter sprint, for example. We are aware that the particular person is going to require a much more of anaerobic capacity as compared to aerobic capacity. Fine. The hip flexion will have a better, uh, I guess, gait, or not in fact gait, running mechanism. Fine. So that is a better word over here. Running mechanism will be much more better. So we need to understand a biomechanicals terms like spatial parameter over there, then temporal parameters over there, that how much time is getting invested in doing any sort of phases. So we know that if we are trying to save a time in a particular phase and the outcome is a time domain outcomes are there, so that is going to get saved over there. Apart from that, energy is going to get saved. So we need to narrow down all those things component. For example, physiological, you can talk about anaerobic capacity. Then biomechanical, we can look upon the sprint quality into two component like spatial parameter and temporal parameters. Then running mechanism is also going to cater in that category only. Then after that, psychological component is also going to have a bigger picture over there. Fine. So we need to look upon certain sort of grid determinants, determinations, then confidence, all those things, positive thinking, attention, self-control, all those things are there in that nutritional component also, because we're looking upon anaerobic capacity. So how the nutritional demands are there, how the loadings are there, and all those things over there. Then anthropometry also. So we are aware that if someone is having a too much amount of fat and all those things, and the transfer of ATP is going to get affected because of the metabolism scenarios over there in case of too much of fat or endomorphy or mesomorphy. So in ectomorphy, we need to understand any sort of anthropometries over there, also fat percentage. So we think that we know that these all things are components are important, values are important, and depending and in case of equipment or anything, we know we need to have a good quality of shoes also because of the GRF and frictional forces. So we can narrow down all those things into different categories like that, into different dimensions, and with certain two qualities. And we can have a like anaerobic capacity. What we can look upon, if lab test like Winget is not available over there, we can do RAST over there. For spatial parameter or temporal parameter, we can able to measure different angles and all those things with the help of any sort of camera and open source softwares. Fine. And then with any sort of again video analysis software, we can able to understand the how much time is getting invested in particular phases. So if we are trying to work upon reduction in that particular time phase, and the outcome will be much more better in a wholesome cumulative effect. Then nutrition also, we can have a particular component like a calories, how much intake, 24-hour records or 72-hour records, depending upon the needs and all those things. Then after that anthropometry, we can do heat carter. So we are having a now certain sort of KPIs like endomorphy, ectomorphy, mesomorphy, where they are falling which category. It is a 3 to 3 or 7 to 3, whatever in a heat carter chart. So like that, we can narrow down all those things. Fine. And in case of any injuries, more injury determinants and dimensions, like we can look upon the and any sort of mobility, stability, how the flexibility is. So because it is going, flexibility is going to look upon or complement neuromuscular control. So likewise, we can do all those things. Fine. So if I answered your question.
Yep. I got an initial idea, but
Mhm.
maybe I'll reach out to you separately because I need much more uh, things which I need to understand. So I'll reach out to you separately as well on this one.
Okay, fine. Any other
Thanks.
queries? Anyone? Thank you so much. So it's basically like a to and fro processes over here. We need to understand the specific needs, and depending upon that, we need to tailor our KPIs. Anyone else is having any sort of things to be discussed or any queries as of now?
Hi, sir. So, sir, I want to ask you, like, for different sports, we can modify the KPIs as well, or it's the thing which is fixed for several sports.
So it needs to be specific in nature. So each and every sports is having a certain sort of requirement, and depending upon that, we need to narrow down our testing or KPIs. Fine, like that, if I answered your question.
So KPI is based on the report of the result of the assessment, right?
KPIs are basically not upon the assessment. KPIs is a part of assessment. Fine. So whenever we're trying to make any sort of assessment programs, we need to look upon the outcome measures. So outcome measures is having a analogous terms of KPIs, key performance indicators. Fine. So each and every sports will is having again further categories, and all those things are there depending upon the energy system or age, and depending upon that we need to tailor or narrow down our KPIs. It particularly depends upon the sports over there, not upon assessment or anything. It is a part of an assessment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else is having any question? Anything
Hello.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Is it a part of like a bigger part of the athlete monitoring system that is just available at the like light level, or we can make this out of like all these take variables and make our own athlete monitoring system for the teams and the at the grassroots? So is it like the same thing?
Okay. So athlete monitoring system is one of the tools and that is having all these things over there, like a data capturing points, you can say. But we can use any sort of Google Forms, Google Sheet, or any things, because sometimes the things will be not over there also in any sort of AMS anything. So sometimes we need to request them to add upon certain sort of test batteries or KPIs. So likewise we can able to do that in a Google Sheet or any sort of forms. Fine. So it's not about athlete management system. That is a different story. That is
Okay.
software is having different story altogether.
Okay, so we can make our own like KPIs and we can take out the data and we can make out of inferences out of that. So that is the difference. AIM is something different and we can make our own KPIs and system out of it.
Obviously, so you can use any sort of MS Excel, Google Form, fine, because all the AMS is having a certain sort of pricing and all, fine. And if we are not having a capabilities to look upon the financial things that they are asking, then we need to look upon certain sort of alternatives that can be done through Google Forms or Excel or any sort of data capturing tools. Fine. So at the end of the
Okay.
day, we need to understand KPIs. KPIs is a reflection of performance. Performance is a reflection of sports. So if we can say that VO2 max is important for marathon, then we need to look upon that VO2 max, how we are measuring it also. Then again, there's one catch over here. KPIs, the reliability. Again, there are two types of reliability, intra and inter. And then how we are doing all those things. Because in India or globally, fine, there are so many equipments are widely available, and each and every equipment is having its own way of uh, populating the data through their own software. Fine, so those things are there. But if we can able to track keep any sort of running economy, lactate threshold, whatever it could be, then it is beneficial for us only.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Anyone else is having any queries? Yeah.
Like once we have got the performance indicators, there must be some kind of priority which we need to work upon. So that like if we get 15, 20 performance indicators, it's not possible practically to cater to all those in the same point. So how do we determine like some priority so that to determine the performance?
Okay. So in human body, everything is having a certain sort of relationship. Fine. So suppose, for example, if you're working for something on fat reduction. 1 second. I'm so sorry. So if someone is having plan for fat reduction. Okay, so that time we are looking for we are making any sort of plan on that, and that fat reduction plan is going to complement our cardio health also, isn't it? So sometimes certain parameters and KPIs is going to give a reflection or complement of the KPIs also. However, we need to discuss with the coaches about the what are the performance we need to work upon as of now, and to it's like a group discussion with the coaches, and then we can plan it out all those things, because in human body things will take time because of the adaptations and all those things, and it's a time consuming thing. So in fact I will say rather that we need to discuss upon coaches with the coaches in fact, and then among the coaches and among the support staff, to have a better vision that which KPIs we need to work upon. For example, over here, if you see, if you need to work upon VO2 max, it is going to complement running economy also. Or if you're working upon lactate, it is going to complement other component also. Fine. So if you're working upon running techniques also, like down. Okay, so it is going to help in getting a much more range of motion or angles, and that thing is going to complement energy saving strategies. Are there certain things on that? Energy is going to get saved because of the reach through the range of motion, and it is going to again complement energy system, then cardiovascular system. So everything is having a certain sort of relationship. However, we need to discuss with the coaches.
Okay, thank you, sir. And can you just elaborate a little bit on the rules part of performance determinant? How, like, it's same for
Rules,
all, but
rules are again like for example, if you say kabaddi or cricket, anything. So they are having certain rules of and regulation of any games, and we need to abide by that because I'm so sorry for that. So we need to abide by all the rules and regulation so that we will try to help for injury preventions also and training also and all those things like that. So each and every sports like a football also they are having certain sort of rules. Fine. And if you're not following all those things, the training methods, whatever things, the performance and all those things is going to get affected, not only physiologically but also psychologically. Fine. So that's why we need to look upon the rules and all those things. So we can any sports. Fine. So think about it, be it any sports, how the rules are important. And suppose, for example, if you're doing any sort of football playing, and if there are foul play, the injury chances are much more over there. Fine. So that's how the things are important and all those things like that. And
okay,
through that,
thank
we
you,
need
sir.
to certain KPIs on that also. We can formulate it also.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else is having any queries? No queries as such? Fine then. Okay, and then thank you so much for your time. I will keep posting over the channel and all those things. And in case if anyone wants to say or look upon any sort of topics, anything, fine. So if they want to discuss upon any particular specific topics, anything, so they can email me and all those things. I guess everyone is having my email IDs and all. So I will try to look upon. For the next week, I will try to put up the topics. Fine. And I will try to put a poll in a group. Fine. On that. So now it's less than even a minute also. So thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.